Good morning. Welcome to Business Live with me, Ian King. We start with a breaking story this morning. A major 1.6-mile-long bridge has collapsed after a collision involving a cargo ship in the US city of Baltimore in Maryland. This was the moment around 1:30 local time that the Dali container ship, chartered by Maersk, which was on its way to Colombo in Sri Lanka, collided with one of the pillars of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Local officials are currently describing the event as a dire emergency. A search and rescue operation is underway, with at least 7 people believed to be missing. Well, during the course of this programme, we'll bring you the latest from Baltimore and look at the disaster from the perspective of the shipping and construction industries. Joining me now is Peter Aylett. He's Director of Policy at the UK's Chamber of Shipping. Peter, morning to you. Give me your reaction, please, first to this.
Well, first of all, horror about a terrible tragedy. Obviously, there's casualties in the water, state of emergency, you know, the sort of thing that you never want to see or happen. And I have to say that in my professional lifetime, I haven't seen anything quite like this in terms of the catastrophe that we've seen. So shocked, I suppose, really, is my response.
I mean, Maersk are a world-class shipping company, one of the world's biggest container shipping operators. Just how much visibility would they have over a vessel like this that's been chartered by them, but being operated, as we understand it, by a third party?
Yes, so the vessel is owned by a company, it's managed by another company, and then all that Maersk are doing is chartering it for a specific period of time to move their cargoes. So in terms of control of the vessel, legally there will be, within the charter arrangement, significant restrictions on what the vessel can do and how it is to deliver those cargoes. But in terms of the management of the vessel in navigation terms, not very much is the answer. They will obviously be monitoring it, but they won't have any type of control whatsoever of the precise navigation of the vessel. That rests entirely with the ship's company and the crew and the master.
So in terms of one was to apportion liability, this sounds like it's going to be quite straightforward from what you're saying.
I'm not quite certain that's the case because we know very little about it, Ian, at this stage. We don't know what caused the effect. We don't know if that all the correct risk assessment mitigations were taken, etc. I mean, it looks on the face of it as though the weather conditions were not an issue. There isn't a great tidal range in this port, so I doubt that there's going to be particularly strong tidal streams or currents. And so it looks like either a mechanical failure or an error on behalf of the team. And so from that perspective, it's an operational issue. And so it's relatively straightforward in the sense of what may have caused it, but it won't necessarily be in terms of liabilities. They could be a bit more complex. OK, Peter, we have to leave it there for the time being. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. We go after now to our US correspondent, Martha Kellner, who is in Baltimore. Martha, what can you tell us?
Morning, Ian. Well, the sun's just come up here in Baltimore, so people really getting the first clear view of what happened in the early hours of this morning. I'm stood in front of what remains of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It's almost entirely collapsed in part. You can make out, I'm just going to stand out in a shot so that you can get a clearer view. You can make out the shipping container boat. It had just set off a matter of minutes before from Baltimore Harbour around 1 a.m. this morning. At 1:35 a.m. It hit this boat. It hit a pillar of the bridge. Apologies, and that bridge collapse began. The Francis Scott Key Bridge is the major commuter route circling the city of Baltimore in the Baltimore and Washington D.C. area. We now know from fire services here that at least 7 people entered the river. We know that there were people working on that bridge at the time. I'm just going to step back into shot here. We know that people were working on the bridge at the time. We know that there were vehicles on that bridge too. The fire department saying that their sonar system, which detects objects underwater, has seen at least 1 vehicle that entered the water as a result of this bridge collapse. I'm not sure whether you can make it out, but in the distance there are emergency service boats still conducting search and rescue operations. in the water. But it is very cold here. It's been just over 6 hours since this bridge collapse happened, and people can clearly only survive in the water for a certain period of time. But emergency services saying that search and rescue operation is ongoing. As I say, they believe at least 7 people entered the water. 2 people were rescued, one of those with little to no injuries. The other one, critically injured, has been taken to hospital and hasn't yet been able to provide a full account of what happened. But we saw, or I'm sure viewers have seen, videos, CCTV of the moment of that bridge collapse, a very dramatic moment, just seconds after the boat made impact. Large portions of this bridge began to collapse.
OK, thanks, Martha. Well, joining me now is Richard Mead. He's editor of Lloyd's List, the leading shipping industry source of news, data and analysis. Richard, very good morning to you. I mean, obviously, in the global context of the insurance industry, this is going to be a flea bite, but one imagines, nonetheless, the payouts here are going to be significant for insurers.
Yes, as the previous speakers have said, Peter explained, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of liability, but this is going to be a significant and expensive operation, both in terms of the diverted traffic, the implications in trade, the damage, obviously, to the bridge itself and the rebuilding. But, Baltimore is the 11th largest port in the US in terms of containers. 1.1 million containers going in and out of the port on an annual basis, 90,000 last month alone. Depending on how long this port is effectively shut by this incident, there's obviously going to be knock-on implications that are going to generate costs in terms of, the diversions of shipping and trade that are going to come as part of this.
Richard, thanks for that. Joining me now is David Mackenzie. He's chair of the engineering and architecture consultancy, Cowie Fond. And David, very good morning to you. This bridge was built in 1977, as I understand it. Is it of a typical construct for the period?
Yes, it's not unusual. The deck type is what we call a balanced cantilever bridge. It's 360-odd metres in its main span, so there's nothing inherently unusual about the bridge. I would add that there is some ship impact protection in the form of some what we call dolphins, or big concrete obstacles that are in the way there, but obviously the ship has got past those.
Has bridge construction technology moved on much since 1977? And presumably this bridge is going to have to be reconstructed at some point. Will there be significant differences in how it will be put together?
I would certainly envisage some changes. I imagine that they'll need to make the channel a bit wider. Obviously, as part of the risk assessment is, what caused this bridge to be hit by the ship and how do you mitigate those risks in the future? And you would see significantly enhanced ship impact protection. So typically an island built around the piers. But I would expect a slightly longer span bridge to be put in its place, probably a cable-stayed bridge or something like that, like Dartford Bridge, a similar size to that. But yes, it's going to require a complete redesign of the bridge and new foundations.
Worth pointing out, I guess, David, is that container ships, when this bridge was constructed in 1977, were not of the kind of size that they are now.
That's absolutely right, and that's one of the risks there. Then you'd expect the port authorities to be looking at risk of larger ships, larger vessels. We're constantly faced with this in bridges that were built a long time ago. Loads change, vehicles get heavier, ships going underneath them get bigger, so the risks need to be constantly reassessed.
And in terms of the cost of reconstruction, would you care to hazard a guess?
Well, I know that the original construction was around about $60 million, but it's going to be over 10 times that to rebuild it at least. It's got to be built quickly because you've heard of the pressure on the commuter traffic. So that means it's going to be a lot more expensive and the process of procurement is going to have to be shortcut hugely. So it is going to be an expensive rebuild at the end of the day. OK,
David, we appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now is Ken Gilmartin. He's Chief Executive of Wood Group. Ken, very good morning to you. You were, of course, here to talk about your results, which we will get on to, I promise you. But what do you make of all this? I mean, obviously, you have a business with materials technology as part of it.
And a structural engineer from background myself, and have been on that bridge on numerous occasions.
Wow.
What it does probably reinforce, just as a general piece, is just how fundamental safety is in everything that you do, from an engineering standpoint, from the people that we have to protect it all. at all facets and phases, and terrible tragedy. And my heart goes out to everybody involved in it.
So you've been on that bridge. How important is it as a shipping lane?
Huge arteryway. When you go across there, you can't but be impressed by the volume of traffic that goes under it as well as across it as well. So very important to the infrastructure in that location as well as the US.
Obviously, there's been a lot of commentary about the poor quality of a lot of US infrastructure, and it's something that the Biden administration is seeking to tackle. And indeed, you've been a part beneficiary of that. Is that going to push that further up the agenda, do you think, what's happened today?
Yeah, I think, with all of these and with all of the things that happen, there's always somewhere where you need to invest money. I mean, I think the Inflation Reduction Act that the Biden administration announced was really important for finding areas and where you need to stimulate growth and things that you need to do. And for us as Wood, with energy security and our energy transition space, we've seen fantastic growth on the back of that.
Well, good to hear. I mean, let's get on to some of that. I mean, your order book was up to 4% to £6.3 billion at the end of last year. What sort of contracts are you winning just now?
Yeah, we're winning a lot. We're winning a lot of contracts in a lot of locations all around the world. We're an engineering consultancy, so the contracts that we win are typically, they're not massive big headlines. Average size for us is 10 million. But we are seeing in energy, in the energy security space, a lot of work around decarbonisation, a lot of studies that are helping to reduce the carbon intensity. In our energy transition, 1,600 front-end studies last year in carbon capture and hydrogen alone globally. So really across all of our portfolio, materials, mining, mineral processing, a lot of work there, life sciences, pharmaceuticals, as well as in our chemical space. So really broad growth across all of our end markets.
I mean, the one thing that I really took away from the results statement today reading is obviously consulting is the bit that you're trying to focus on right now because it's higher margin. What proportion of the business will that ultimately be, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we're moving. We're at 35,000 people right now, 4,000 people in consulting, seen significant growth in there, 13% last year from a revenue standpoint. And we're seeing our clients asking us for more and more services. That specialist engineering, that specialist design, those sustainable solutions. So it's going to outgrow the other parts of our business. We're really excited about it.
What part of the business ultimately will energy account for? Obviously, the business has its roots in oil and gas, but you've diversified into lots of other areas. Yeah,
we're about 65% of our revenue is in energy. And as I said at the outset, energy security and energy transition. And energy transition growing and growing quickly. As we move through the cycle, we've got our materials business, which has chemicals, which has life sciences, and it has that mineral processing piece as well. We'll see. As we go through our strategy, it's going to balance and it's going to become more balanced. Exact numbers, we don't know. What's really important for us is the complexity of the engineering solution. And that's the thing that goes across all of our end markets right now. Where we shine, where we're good, is where it's really hard to do. And that's what our clients love us for, and that's what our people love to do.
And in terms of the energy side of the business, what's the mix now between what one might call traditional hydrocarbons and the transition?
Yeah, I mean, we're still heavily weighted towards kind of energy security, but energy transition. So when we look at carbon capture, we look at hydrogen, we're seeing significant growth there. So carbon capture and hydrogen is outperforming from a growth standpoint, albeit from a relatively small base. Our clients in the traditional oil and gas are decarbonising, reducing the carbon intensity, spending a lot of money to do that, and we're helping them on that journey.
And looking at your headcount, it was down very, very marginally over 12 months, but still north of 35,000 globally. Yeah. Where are you taking on people and where are you perhaps letting them go?
Yeah, I mean, I think where we are, we're growing everywhere. We are a net headcount accretive business, and as we're continuing to go on this growth strategy, which we delivered really well on last year, we're going to see increased headcount. We're seeing it here in the UK. We've got 500 open positions right now. If the universities here could produce more engineers, we'd be able to have work for them immediately. In the Americas, in the Middle East, in our global engineering centres, I'm thinking of India, I'm thinking of Colombia. So really, it's a fairly consistent picture across the planet right now.
Terrific. Ken, we've got to leave it there. Not quite the conversation we anticipated, but it's great to have you in the studio.
Thanks very much, Ian.
Thank you. Still to come here on Business Live, we will be staying with the story of the bridge collapse in Baltimore, and we'll also have the latest from the market. Stay with us.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent. When you think of Glastonbury, it's mud you want and music. They're going to cross to us live in a minute. Thank you so much. Brad Pitt is now a prolific producer behind the scenes.
It's not a mystery to me. We always were capable of doing this.
Oh, they're wonderful children as an audience.
Who did that? Maverick here on the red carpet. I'm so excited, Tom Cruise. This is the story of the night.
It's the little independent film that could.
We take you to the heart of the stories that shape our world.
Nor have I ever struck any woman in my life.
There's this illusion of power.
Are you feeling well? I remember covering the Oscars and that now infamous moment, the Will Smith slap. Nobody could quite believe that it had happened. You can tell from these crowds just how excited people are for the return of Pride.
These actors playing the lead roles were born long after the Sex Pistols broke up.
Are you pleased that you did say yes to the job?
I've never regretted it.
As a team, we've interviewed some of the biggest stars in the world. It can be incredibly surreal being swept up in their world, but we try to give you an honest sense of how these people really are.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Don't leave me.
Yeah, okay.
There's no easy goodies. There's no easy baddies.
I've had a great time here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to talk business? Meet me in the On-Board Lounge. Fly Emirates, fly better.
Well, the pound has rallied on foreign exchange markets this morning after Catherine Mann from the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee told Bloomberg the markets were currently pricing in too many interest rate cuts. Sterling currently ahead by a fifth of 1% against the dollar, unchanged right now against the euro. On the equity markets, last night's declines on Wall Street were followed by mixed trade overnight for stocks in the Asia-Pacific region. Meanwhile, in Europe, here's the current situation. All of the main continental European indices in positive territory. Obviously, we can't get away from the bridge. Other talking points today include Atos, the French IT consulting firm. That's down 6% on news of a planned capital raise. Meanwhile, Maersk, which we were talking about earlier on, the Danish shipping giant, its shares are currently off some 3.75% right now in Copenhagen. Obviously, it had chartered the ship involved in that Baltimore bridge collapse. Here in London, the FTSE 100 is currently more or less unchanged right now. Some of the big foreign currency earners are slightly weighing on the index. The leading blue chip faller in percentage terms is Auto Trader. That's down 4% this morning on broker comment, 4.25% now. The leading gainer just now in the FTSE is Ocado. That's ahead by some 7% on a trading update. Outside the FTSE 100, lots of trading updates today. The iron brew maker AG Bar, that's ahead by nearly 6% after its results came in ahead of expectations. Meanwhile, the oil price has given back some of yesterday's gains. Though look at that, it's now in positive territory. It wasn't half an hour ago when I wandered into the studio. Barrel of Brent crude currently changing hands at $86.89 a barrel. That's up just under a fifth of 1%. Well, joining me this morning is Fawaz Chowdhury. He's head of equities at Fulcrum Asset Management. Fawaz, great to see you, and particularly fortuitous because your business is something of an investor and expert in global shipping.
Yes, we've been involved with the shipping industry for 15 years now. I've been trading in and tankers, bulkers, and containers. So we are currently involved with container shipping. We're actually quite concerned about the order book size and the amount of supply increase coming later in the year.
So what sort of implications is this incident we've had overnight going to have?
I mean, the history of litigation risk in US is broad. Companies like BP or Bayer, from major incidents, initial response has been muted, but followed through. It's uncertain currently for this company, the vessel entirely in place. Indemnity is from Lloyd's of London. And we will see where the liability lies, whether with the operator or with the charterer, and how the incident plays out. So, but the market is down, yes, as you said, 4% on Maersk so far. So we'll see. Yeah.
I mean, I got that sense from Richard Mead from Lloyd's List when we were chatting earlier. It's going to be quite a job to disentangle this.
Yes, because of where to assign the blame. Again, the Maersk crew is not on board at the vessel, but it is chartered, and then whether the insurance, where they assign the liability, and then if it comes back to Maersk or not. Yeah.
Talk to me more broadly then about what's been going on with global container shipping rates, because, I mean, it's a very cyclical market at the best of times.
Yeah, so there was a shortage of ships during the pandemic as the demand for goods went up. Day rates were all-time high, and now the order book is at 30%, huge supply increase later this year. Because of that, day rates were very low coming into the year. But Red Sea drama with the Houthi attacks caused the freight rates to spike in container ship. But seems like traffic is normalizing now, Red Sea to some degree, and that spike is starting to tail off. Current impact means that obviously one ship will not impact overall supply. This incident will mostly impact cargoes out of the Baltimore port, basically.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting point. I mean, we heard from our correspondent there, this is quite a major shipping artery. Nothing like the Red Sea, of course, but nonetheless, would you anticipate, while the investigators look into this, some shipping being diverted?
So Baltimore is the 9th largest port in the US in terms of container traffic volume. So container traffic itself will not be as impacted as some of the specialized cargo going out of Baltimore. So it's the largest port for roll-on, roll-off for trucks and tractors and trailers. So those will be impacted. And it's one of the largest ports for coal volumes coming out of the Appalachian Mountains. So those companies will be impacted. So some specialized volumes will not be easily diverted, but overall container traffic can be diverted.
And while we've got you, Fawaz, let's talk about some other stories in the market today. Busy old day for company results. I mean, Smiths Group is one that jumped out at me, a company we featured on this programme a lot. The CEO, Paul Kearwell, stepping down.
Yes, he's stepping down. He's done a great job. The next year coming on, safe pair of hands. He's been at the company 30 years, a buyback program announced. Similar to our last conversation, like Intertech, a long-term secular compounder. Smiths Group is a fantastic company. They deploy capital very well. They have fantastic assets in both civil aerospace and in the energy transition space. But basically, we have a cyclical manufacturing kickback coming on a secular compounder. 15 PE, great time to belong there. The results were good. We like it.
Yeah, it's been quite a turnaround at that business.
Yeah.
What about Bellway? I mean, the latest house builder today to say they're going to build fewer homes this year than last year.
We actually have been long the UK home builders for almost a year now. I think counter consensus, everyone is quite concerned with rates staying high, that house prices will fall. Now, the last couple of months, house prices in UK have started to take up. We actually feel they will continue to do so because the price of a new build is high. Bellway is one of the cheapest home builders. It's 0.9 times price to book, trading below book value. The trading update was good, and we think their rates have peaked. Bank of England is more likely to now respond to the falling disinflation happening already. We like the group. It's still, despite the rally it's experienced over the last 6 months, we still think it's cheap. Yeah.
And a word very briefly on Ocado, leading gainer in the FTSE this morning.
Ocado's trading update was good. Kantar data came out very recently. Ocado is now taking share again. In general, e-commerce took share in the pandemic, then gave back to the physical footprint, footfall traffic, but now it's coming back to e-commerce. So the last 3 months, they've taken share back. Average grocery price is going up again. So Ocado is now starting to grow again. So let's see how they perform now with the share gain.
OK, Fawaz, we've got to leave it there. Great talking to you this morning. Thank you. Just before I go, some more breaking news to bring you. We've just learned that Their Majesties the King and Queen, accompanied by other members of the royal family, will attend the Easter Matin service at St George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, on Easter Sunday. We know that the King was very keen to attend that service, obviously in the middle of his cancer treatment. We'll have more on that story throughout the day here on Sky News. I hope to see you again at 4:30. Thanks for joining me today. Cheerio.